civil unrest that occurred in the wake of Jacob Blake, a black man being shot multiple times by police during the summer of 2020. Rittenhouse had been charged with homicide, attempted homicide, and reckless endangerment after killing 2 white men and wounding a third with an AR-15 rifle. Now 18 years old, Rittenhouse was 17 at the time of the shooting. There has been a good deal of reaction from the NBA community. John Morant tweeting, "Not surprised at all, shaking my head." Donovan Mitchell quote tweeted that with the words "at all." Bam Adebayo, in just the moments after the verdict was rendered, tweeted the word "wow." And Steve Kerr held a bit of a news conference today in which he said, quote, "We are treading down a dangerous path." And so this is a day of reaction all across this nation. And Michael Wilbon, we will begin with you. What are your thoughts on this evening?
Well, Greeny, probably similar to John Morant's. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm surprised. Sadly, very sadly, I'm not. And my thoughts run along the same lines as Steve Kerr, and that we as a nation, as a culture, are headed down a dangerous path. And, you know, you don't ever want to become numb to this, because it seems like every few weeks, sometimes months, but sometimes sadly weeks, we are hit with the news of a shooting, of a murder, which then isn't treated legally as a murder. And we hear, you know, the excuses, we hear defense attorneys, we hear from all kinds of people talking about why, juries, why there was no conviction in these cases. And ultimately, not to divert too far down that road, but I'm sad. I alternate, Greeny, between sad and angry. And when is the next one? What's going to happen next? You know, I'm in my hometown right now, Chicago, where, I don't know, 50 years ago, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, when I was a little kid, were murdered in their apartments. And you think about it, it's not a movie to me. That happened where I live. And you think about just, again, steadily, you get these situations, and it's just so hurt. There's so much hurt involved. I don't know where to go from there.
I know where to go. Extremely disappointed. And here's the thing. The Black Lives Matter protest was actually taking place because Jacob Blake was shot and killed by police officers, right?
He was not killed. Jacob Blake was not killed, but he was shot multiple times.
Jacob Blake was shot 7 times by law enforcement,
correct,
right? The goal of that protest was to acknowledge that our Black Lives Matter. In that fight, you know what we need? Allies, right? There were other allies, white guys, who ended up being killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, who went 20 miles with something the equivalent of an AR-15, kills 2 people, injures another one. After that happens, is allowed to leave. Was not apprehended. See, that right there is what John Morant and them is talking about when they say not surprised. How he was catered to before the trial even started. So already when the trial was getting ready to start, I was sitting back wondering how he was going to get off. And he did get off. And I am disappointed by that. And the Milwaukee Bucks were the first team to miss NBA games. That created a domino effect that reverberated throughout sports in the community, that people started to follow suit. And that's why, in return, I feel like I'm glad that they won a championship and they were rewarded for that sacrifice. And I'm so very disappointed by this, by this judgment that he doesn't have to take any responsibility. Acquitted of all charges.
Stephen A.
Let's crystallize this. Mike Wilbon spoke eloquently about this. Jalen Rose just spoke eloquently about this. I can't agree with them more because when you talk about NBA players and they're talking about a process. And this is what we have to talk about. Somebody at a Black Lives protest ended up dying. And they happen to be supporters of the Black Lives protest. So if you're an NBA player, if you're somebody coming from the black community, you're going to ask yourself that question, what if it were reversed? What if that individual had gotten shot by those same white individuals that ended up getting, 2 of them ended up getting killed, 3 of them ended up getting shot? What if it was the other way around? And see, those are the kind of questions that I ask. But to me personally, when I think about this kid that just got off today, I'm thinking about the fact, why don't we bring up that you showed up to the protest armed? Who asked you to be there? Why did you feel compelled to be there? You know, with Trayvon Martin, as it was the case with this kid, you've got a situation where you're a wannabe cop. You'll want to be a law enforcement official. That's a problem, number one. But the one thing that I will say is this, and I don't think we bring enough attention to it. In cases such as this, I also look at the prosecutor, because I look at how the prosecutor was chastised by the judge on far too many occasions.
Oh, they was arguing.
I know that, but I'm saying on far too many occasions when we look at the prosecution, because of the system that we work under and the laws of this land, sometimes I find myself looking at the prosecution and wishing they had done a better job.
But also, it rewards the vigilante behavior, kind of like we saw with George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin.
Yes.
That's another thing that makes everybody so very upset.
I think that's what Steve Kerr was referring to. $5,000 pick and roll pool tonight. Download the DraftKings app, sign up with a promo code SPLASH, and you can play right now. Of course, the big news here in just the last few minutes, it has been made official. LeBron James will make his return. He came out and warmed up about 45 minutes ago, spent about 14 minutes on the floor, and then shortly thereafter the announcement was made. LeBron will come back after missing the last 8 games with an abdominal strain. Woj is with us here on the court tonight. Woj, what more can you tell us about this decision?
Greeny, LeBron James had been targeting tonight against the Celtics all week long to make this return from this abdominal strain. And I'm told this was an injury that he had been conservative with, one that he wanted to get past and not have an injury that was going to be recurring through the season. But he had a great workout in Milwaukee on Wednesday and then came out tonight really moving well with that abdominal strain. So he'll be back. The Lakers, without him this season, they've been 4-6.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He threw down a slam dunk right before he ran off the floor. And we all looked at each other and said, oh, yeah, LeBron is playing tonight. But I'll tell you what, his game has changed over the last few seasons. Although he's played just 6 games this year, he's averaging only 10 points in the paint, which is on pace to be his fewest since his rookie year. And his average shot distance has dropped by roughly a foot in each of the past 2 seasons. So it is sort of the evolution of the superstar that we are seeing. And so, Stephen A. Smith, what do we need to see from LeBron James in his return for the Lakers to achieve all that they would like to?
All that he has to offer plus additional prayers. It really comes down to that. LeBron James is going to be LeBron James. He's on the court. He's too big. He's too great. He's too brilliant not to be anything less than what we expect of him, which is 25 to 27 a game, while running the offense, keeping the turnovers to a minimum, and galvanizing his team. The question is, would that be good enough? I think it's good enough for them to be a formidable team, good enough for them to be a playoff team. I stopped there because of the Golden State Warriors. I said it before, I say it again, and I'll be damned if I'm going to apologize for it.
The Lakers, the oldest team in basketball, but they play at the second fastest pace. You're going to see LeBron James actually get out in transition and get layups and get dunks fed to him by his teammates. He's also going to stabilize the lineup. THG's came back. He's been playing well. Russell Westbrook had 15 assists in the previous game. You need Anthony Davis to be dominant and play a lot more at the 5. So having LeBron James back puts everybody back in their normal position. The Lakers start to play better basketball with him in the lineup.
Michael Wilbon, only 2 players in the history of the sport have played more minutes than LeBron James has. Is it reasonable to expect him to do all of these things at this stage of his career?
No, it's not reasonable, but let's face it, LeBron has defied that many times in his incredible career. But I was just thinking when Jalen and Stephen A. were talking about the things they need from him, I'm nodding, saying, yeah. But the number one thing they need from him is to be available, to be healthy. And I don't know how reasonable it is to expect that, given LeBron is not going to be out there shying away from contact and just sort of staying out of the fray. That's not who he is. So the one thing and the only thing I wish for LeBron James moving into the holiday season is good health. I mean, I don't know. We know if he's healthy, he's going to do all the things both those guys just said. Mm-hmm. But can he be healthy? Those minutes are real, man. When people talk about tread on the tire, that's what they're talking about. And he's in an area that no one has ever ventured before.
Oh, please, excuse me. Last time I checked, you climbing up in age on that birth certificate of yours. You still move pretty well. You work a lot of hours. You work your tail off. You outwork people like myself, okay? That's the bottom. I don't want to hear all of that. I don't want to hear all of that.
Y'all are propping me up. You guys are propping me up. I appreciate it.
It's well-deserved. Now, here's the situation.
Yeah.
Let me address Mr. Jalen
Please
Rose
do.
here. You can't have it both. You can't have LeBron James in the lineup healthy with the ball in his hands and talk to me about pace. Because if LeBron James has the ball in his hands, it's going to compromise their pace. He holds onto the ball because he knows he makes the best decisions. And as a result, he's going to purview the landscape and he's going to make decisions and it's going to slow their pace.
You don't believe
know
me?
that.
You don't believe me? Just watch tonight.
Tonight.
They're second in pace not because of LeBron. It's because of everybody else,
I know that.
including Russell
While he was
Westbrook.
gone. He was gone.
Now that he's back, watch you go see LeBron James hanging on this rim with two hands. 3-on-2
So LeBron ain't
breaks,
going to be holding the ball.
2-on-1 break.
So LeBron's not going to be holding the ball.
No, they're going to play a
You know
lot
who has
faster.
spoken on
until
this
the
issue?
game slows down.
It's ridiculous.
Until the game
The
slows
most
down.
ridiculous.
The most important voice
No.
has spoken on this issue, and I'll tell you what that was as we continue. Oh, by the way, and tonight's three-point performance is brought to you by Mountain Dew. The Suns have won those 10 straight for the first time since 2010, making the long ball during the run. They've made at least 10 threes in 7 of their last 8 games. They rank in the top 10 in three-point field goal percentage since the winning streak began on the 30th of October. Another key part of this run, late game situations. They're 6-0 in clutch time games, which is when the game is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. That's the most such wins since October 30th. They look to extend that streak tonight in the second game of our doubleheader. We bring you back onto the floor here in Boston, and the reason you were hearing those loud cheers and some boos behind us, the Lakers have just taken the floor behind us, and that means that LeBron James is out here once again. The big story, LeBron will play tonight, returning from an 8 games departure with the abdomen strain. Anthony Davis, meanwhile, has been trying to carry this team in his absence, and he has been very good. But the question is, should the Lakers, should LeBron be expecting more from Anthony Davis than he has given them to this point?
Absolutely, because he has MVP potential, but for the most part, he plays like an all-NBA performer. What you see from Giannis in Milwaukee, what you see from the Joker in Denver, that's what the Lakers need from AD, in particular when LeBron isn't playing. And I'm going to take it a step further. If they're going to make me look smart and win the Western Conference like I predicted in the preseason, he's got to be more dominant, or that's not going to happen.
Even Jalen would disagree with what I'm about to say. Anthony Davis is a star. He is supposed to be a superstar. Period. There's nothing missing from his game. It's all there. It's just a matter of you wanting it and wanting it badly. And I think the other thing that we have to say is this: as great as he is, and as great as we know he could be, sometimes it's about purviewing that landscape, seeing the contemporaries out there, knowing that they've elevated their level of play and answering the call. Sometimes it's not just about the skill. We're not looking at Anthony Davis. He needs to dribble better, shoot better, pass better, rebound better. We're looking at him and saying, excuse me, you got the Greek freak up there the other night. He saw you and said, I'm dropping 47 on you. What you gonna do about it? You gotta answer that call when you're that great.
Michael,
Simple.
But you know what?
Wilbon, we were together watching that game on Wednesday night when Giannis went for those 47 against Anthony Davis. What did that game, that performance in particular, say to you about where AD is right now?
Well, I understand exactly why Stephen A. and why Jalen are saying, okay, here's what we expect. Here's what he's got to produce. But I think you're asking for something we've never seen. Anthony Davis has not been that player. He's a great player. And he's my homie from right here in Chicago. I love him. I'd like to have him on my team anytime. But I think you guys are asking for something we have not seen. Anthony Davis hasn't been, he can dominate games or stretches, but he's not been an MVP player. Oh, come on, Stephen. Tell me when he's done it. He didn't do it in New Orleans.
How
and
about
he's
in
been
the
a
finals?
great complimentary
You
player.
asked me a question. Can I answer it? You did ask me.
Yes, you can.
I answer
Now you can.
Okay. Here's the answer to that question. They were playing throughout the playoffs, in the bubble, and in the finals, and we all unanimously recognized it could have easily been Anthony Davis for MVP. So we saw it then. We know what he can do.
Let me
That's a
answer the
series.
question in the form of a question, Michael Wilbon. Every single time we hear people talk about Anthony Davis, people will say, well, he's a top 5 player in the NBA. Is he?
No, I've been saying that for years, and that's okay. He's a top 10 player, but he has top 5 talent. That's why we're having this conversation.
Well, then maybe it isn't okay. If you're a top 10, if you're a top 5
That's where I was
talent
going.
and a top 10 player,
That's where I was
it's
going.
not okay.
It's not okay because if you're a top 5 talent, damn it, you should be a top 5 talent. You shouldn't have top 5 talent, but you top 10. You should be top 5.
But I want to drill down on why, though. It's not the stats. It's the impact.
Yeah.
When the Greek Freak coming to town, you can't play 35 minutes and go to the free throw line 0 times, and he almost got 50 on you.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right,
But
we
you're
have to let
talking
Mr.
about a
LeBron go.
two-time
He could've prevented
MVP.
Yes.
A two-time
Enjoy
MVP,
your birthday,
Jalen,
Wilby.
versus somebody else with no MVPs. And he
Well, but
is
that
a
kind
great
of-
player, but he's not Giannis.
That's the point. And
Should be.
Maybe that makes the point for itself. Michael Wilbon, we have to let you go. Have a wonderful weekend and a
Happy
wonderful
birthday.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys.
We will
Happy
appreciate you more
birthday.
here
Appreciate
as the Lakers
you.
and Celtics are set to go. And again, the big story here in Boston, LeBron James will make his return tonight after missing the last 8 games with an abdominal strain. LeBron and the Lakers against the Celtics, and we're taking you up to tip in just a moment. You're watching NBA Countdown on ESPN.
LeBron got a cut. They in trouble.
Not necessarily.
NBA Countdown is presented by Mountain Dew, official partner of the
Finding their way in a different way.
I think the Celtics are struggling, obviously, considerably more. They've got a new coach. We're wondering about the future of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, whether that can coexist for years to come in Boston, whatever change is going to be made. So we're wondering about them, even though we know they're both stars. In the case of the Los Angeles Lakers, we expect title contention. That's what we're looking at. They're a roster that's built to compete for the title. Will they win it? That's another story. But they are definitely going to be in the picture so long as they're healthy.
The problem for the Celtics and the Sixers, they were both ascending very early at the same time. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the teams in the East got better.
Okay.
The Raptors won the championship. The Bucks won the championship. The Heat won the East. And then Miami got a big 3. And you brought up trading Jason Tatum potentially and breaking up Jalen Brown. That would be one of the dumbest things in the history of the
agree.
Boston Celtics.
Well,
do not trade Jalen Brown by
Can I say-
any means.
Let me say this real quick. It's no knock against any of them. But when you got 2 guys that are stars, sometimes moving one of them will give you the multiple parts that you need to help out the other. That's all I mean by that. They're both legit stars.
Let me tell you guys that with the announcement that LeBron is going to play tonight, the line at Caesars moved from the Celtics, a 2-point favorite, to the Lakers, a 1.5-point favorite. Does he score 20 tonight?
Easy, in a sleep.
Yeah, he scores 20 tonight, no doubt about it.
And they win.
LeBron is back, and Stephen A. says they're going to win. Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Cassidy Hubbard have all the action. Enjoy the game live tonight from Boston here
Support
on
Bill Russell.
ESPN.
Thank you, Greeny. There really is a special atmosphere tonight. Despite it being a November game, a sold-out TD Garden, LeBron James and the Lakers with their lone visit of the season. Just the fact that he's back in uniform and will be back in the lineup as this rivalry continues. And we welcome you to NBA Courtside, presented by DoorDash. So many great players throughout this great rivalry. But right now, Lakers and Celtics, 2 teams in search of victories. Injuries have been certainly a part of that, but they've both been up and down. Lakers think that'll certainly change as LeBron James will be in the starting lineup after missing the last 8 games with that abdominal strain. Everyone, along with Doris Burke, Mike Breen on hand. We'll check in with Cassidy Hubbard in just a couple of minutes. So just having him back in the lineup, it's great. It's great for the league. It's great for the Lakers. Maybe the Celtics not that happy. But what a difference, obviously, he will make, Doris. And you think about all the hand-wringing that's gone on. They start the season as they're going to the NBA Finals to this team's got no shot at the Finals. You can't even possibly speculate on this team's potential without him in the lineup.
Yeah, I would think when a 17-time All-Star and 4-time MVP is out of the lineup, there's going to be some bumps in the road. And we're talking about one of the all-time greats, a man whose presence elevates everybody's play around him. Why? Because of the gravity, because of the attention he draws, and because we are talking about one of the greatest passers in the history of the game. His return is one of many that they need. They still don't have Ariza. There's other pieces and parts missing. The Lakers can't be judged quite yet, Mike.
Well, this is certainly a good start. With more on his return, let's check in with Cassidy. Hey, Cassidy.
Hey, Mike BB. I actually just asked LeBron how he's feeling. He nodded at me. He said, I'm good to go. He was hopeful the majority of this week that he would play, but he made his final decision in the pregame workouts where he put on a show for these fans here. He had a couple long-distance shots to cheers and then finished with a big dunk. walking off the court to a mix of cheers and boos. I asked LeBron what his abdominal strain has felt like, and he told me it's been like a piercing pain that he feels not just with sharp movements, but when he sneezes, coughs, or laughs even. So it's a matter of managing that pain, given how many sharp movements there are in the game of basketball. I did observe him grab his abdominal area a few times in his workout, though. But this is a fitting game for his return, as he told me he loves playing here in Boston, and it shows as he averages over 28 points a game versus the Celtics, the second most points in his career against a single opponent. And this will be his first game back at TD Garden since January, guys.
Well, they're 4-2 in the 6 games he's played, 4-6 in the 10 games he has not. Meanwhile, the Celtics' main star, Jason Tatum, he's played in every game, and once again showing why he's one of the best players in the game. But he's been a little less efficient this year than he's been in the past.
He is, Mike. In fact, he said, I've never missed this many shots in my career.
And this is our greatest delivery, brought to you by DoorDash.
But let's remember, he's 23 years old and already a 2-time All-Star, and with an offensive package that is very difficult to deal with. Look at the strides taken once he decides to pick up that dribble. One-on-one situations, in isolation. This guy is very skilled. He can get to his spots, whether it's a step-back three or whether